Bittersweet day, guys. The old shop truck is beginning the process of leaving us forever.
Alright dudes, I'm not gonna lie, I regret selling this thing. So I bought this in 2014 and the truck itself is a 2004. I bought it for I think $4,800 from a state outlet basically. It used to be a game warden's truck, which I talked about previously. And you can no longer, needless to say, it's 2022, so the equivalent of this would be like a 2012 model truck going out and buying it today. Yeah, you're not going to find a 2012 Super Duty truck for $4,800 in running driving condition. I mean, yeah, it needed some things, but really not all that much. And man, so with the economy imploding and Western society becoming more and more dysfunctional with each passing day, month, and year, my advice is if you have a serviceable vehicle of this sort, you should really just try to keep the thing because it's going to cost you a lot of money to replace it. To be fair, I did get a good amount of money for this thing when I sold it because obviously we added the hideous but strong and very functional winch bumper and also the flatbed. I really like that flatbed especially. But, you know, man, if you got anything that's paid for, my advice is just keep it. This thing, it had about 200,000 miles when I sold it, and it had two problems mainly. Something in the top end of the engine was rattling around when you start it, and the amount of oil these trucks consume is insane. It lost like a quart every 600 or 800 miles, which I don't remember off the top of my head, but for the engines in these, that's close to, if not within, the allowed spec for oil consumption from Ford, believe it or not. So yeah, but anyway, like I said, it ran and drove, and I really should have kept this thing. I mean, you can't, especially with things falling apart, you can't really be going into something, that, you know, going into debt for stuff right now, and the intelligent thing to do financially at least would have been for me to keep this truck and just, you know, keep topping off the keep topping off the oil. You know, every fill up of the gas tank, pretty much. At least check it. I guess, yeah, you have to top it off after two, 3, 4 fill ups. But anyway, yeah, I should have kept that truck. Man, that was a good pickup. That's the 2-valve 5.4 liter. That's the more reliable of the two. I wish they had it named it the Triton, but you know, that truck, man, you turn the key and it goes, and that's something that you're not guaranteed even if you buy a new one. Anyway, side note, but yeah, if you got anything that runs and drives, best to be holding on to that for now.
For a number of reasons, mainly, it's a fairly old vehicle. It's a 2004 with a 5.4 liter and quite a few miles on it, so it's finally started to show its age. Also, I have this in my F-150 personal truck. I've decided instead of insuring and registering and maintaining 2 vehicles, I want to go to 1 truck, so I'm gonna buy like a diesel with an 8-foot bed and a few other features I want. So anyway, what this means is that we're not going to be using this welding skid anymore, therefore I have to go back to having a welding trailer. Now, I have mixed feelings about having welding trailers. They're nice because you can just unhook and then you don't have to drag all that stuff around with you. Or like, you know, having that welding skid on that other truck really put a lot of extra weight on the truck. When I was towing like this thing pulling steel, you know, it really gets weighed down pretty fast. I also don't like backing trailers down driveways and through construction sites. That's kind of a pain. But I've got this trailer right here. I don't use it all that often. This is the 5x10 we made last spring with an I-beam frame, and I think it's pretty much perfect for this. Compared to a regular trailer, it's got a very high ground clearance. Anyway, yeah, I've decided I'm gonna put a bunch of stuff on this. It's gonna hold everything the welding skid did, so like 3 toolboxes plus the welder. Plus we're finally mounting my air compressor to it. Plus I just bought this 60-inch toolbox the other day. So yeah, we basically have to work on getting all this stuff on here. Oh, it's warm in here. December and we're pushing 80 today. I love it. Stopping is for plebs. Now these boxes are great because they're very durable, they're weatherproof, and they're kind of surprisingly affordable in my opinion, but they have these feet on the bottom, which is good if you need to be able to move the box around with a forklift or something along those lines. However, it does make the box 3-4 inches higher, so anytime I mount these on like, you know, welding skid, or in this case a welding trailer, or anything along those lines, I find it's best to cut these feet off just because, like I said, it makes it that much easier to reach into the box. They're probably about 3/16 steel. Power Max just zips right through it, and like I said, it makes it so much nicer to get in and out of these things. Idiots at the store didn't even realize they threw in this gravel. Mine now. Thing, you guys, is heavier than it looks, and we got in here just close enough so we don't have to move it by hand. Alright guys, check it out. We got this thing done. I just loaded the last of my tools on this thing. Just got to grab a half a 6010 and a water bottle label and we'll have everything transferred over to this. Now, I feel like I was really packing stuff in here, especially there at the end, but I was able to sort of plan this out. I drew it up on paper before I ever started on this project, so I feel like everything worked out well. Now, one thing I'll say I kind of learned the hard way in the past is, believe it or not, that welder's not very heavy. That's maybe 300 or 400 pounds, that particular welder. These toolboxes are like 80 to 100 pounds a piece, and just like people that buy, you know, regular rollout drawer chests for their garage and then they wreck the slides on them because they don't think about how much all their crap weighs, well, you'd be surprised how much all this crap weighs. This is something which I luckily learned in the past, so that's why I've arranged this with the welder at the back of the trailer instead of at the front, and the two big boxes full of tools ahead of this. The air compressor is slightly ahead of the axle overall. You know, most of it is, and so really all we have behind the axle is the Trailblazer, which seems to have sprung an oil leak around a filter which is either leaking or never sealed right in the first place, and I've never had that happen before, and I'm kind of frustrated because I almost ran this friggin' thing out of oil. Fired up, it sounds like a diesel with 10,000 hours on it. Look at that, it's started leaking out of that filter and just, it's all friggin' everywhere. But that's a problem for another day because it's getting late. Anyway, yeah, so pretty much the only thing behind the axle is a little bit of the air compressor, most of the welder, and this toolbox and its contents, which are the lightest of the three boxes on this trailer, and the vise. Now, the other few things I've thought about here, I did mount the vise on this. Some of my regular viewers remember this used to be on a receiver hitch thing, which you just stab into doobly-doo on the back of that truck. And that actually worked quite well. It was surprisingly rigid and quite functional. However, you get pretty tired of having to wrestle that contraption, which between the vise and this and the hitch and all the steel between it was probably 60 to 80 pounds. You get really tired of having to wrestle that out the back seat of your truck and in there every single time you have to use it. So I thought I'd go ahead, bolt this down, and I bolted it right over that frame rail, that I-beam frame rail, so that shouldn't go too far. This battery, I put it here for a number of reasons. One, it's, you know, it has to be here somewhere for the air compressor. Two, I can jumpstart equipment off of this in the field. And three, it's easy to access. Now, the Trailblazer, of course, has its own battery. Someday, maybe 5 years from now, when that battery stops working, I'm just going to buy some longer cables and wire that and the air compressor into use the same battery. I know a lot of people with service trucks will wire all the stuff to use the truck's battery. So there's one battery for like the truck and then 2 or 3 other things on the back of it. Picked up an air hose reel. This is one of the main advantages of this system as opposed to my welding skid, is that what I've done essentially is I've gone from, I can't get my hatches right, I've gone from essentially a 4x8 skid. It was a little less, it was like 4x7 or something when I condense it down to fit on this truck to a 5x10 trailer with some stuff hanging off the side. So there's so much more stuff on this. I've added the air compressor, the battery for the air compressor, the hose, the vise, and a 60-inch toolbox at the cost of one, like 24 wide, actually not quite, I think it's like 20 wide, 30 long toolbox. I got all this extra space and this tool on here. This is the other thing, you know, it was nice sometimes just having to take this truck because it had all my welding stuff on the back. The problem with this was there's no air compressor. So I had to do one of two things. I had to take my little air compressor in the cab because I didn't have my air compressor on the back of the truck. And that thing, even though it's small, it's still probably 80, 90 pounds. Hey, no. Even though it's 80, 90 pounds, you know, it was still sort of a chore to have to wrangle that around and, you know, plug it in and unplug it all the time. And the other thing is that's just a little air compressor. That's fine for light duty plasma cutting. If I had to plasma cut a lot of stuff, I had to plasma gouge anything, you know, or run an impact or whatever, I had to bring this anyway. So this trailer was out there with me anyway. Therefore, why not just put everything on the trailer and not have stuff on the back of the truck? So yeah, I've gained so much more space in this box. This box, which I'm hesitant to open because it has my phone number on the inside of the lid, you know, before it was packed like literally to the gills. Sometimes I would have problems closing this thing, and now both of these boxes, they're comfortably full. There's some space in here where I can work, you know. No more when it was just that box do I have to unload half the box to get to one thing at the bottom. Now there's really just one layer of stuff in each box, so it's going to be so much faster, so much more efficient to load and unload stuff. Did that. Now also, because of the way these boxes are, you can't put them right, you know, front to anything because the lock goes in here. I have to put the lock on before I close up shop. You have to be able to reach in here and turn the key for the lock, right? So there has to be this space right here, which is okay because this trailer has D-rings here anyway. So I decided to capitalize on this and use it to chain in, chains holding down on both ends. This farm jack, which I use surprisingly often for fabrication type stuff. And I'm actually going to pick up a slightly heavier duty chain than that before I take this thing on the road. But yeah, we have that. We have all this stuff. We have a 7,000 pound axle on this thing. So, you know, if you have a 3,500 pound axle, you can't use the good tires. You have to use those little spindly, cheap, crappy deals. With this, you can get tires that are actually made for commercial use. They're a lot thicker, they're a lot more resilient, and they're larger, so this pulls a little bit smoother. And the main thing is 3,500 pounds trailer. If it weighs 1,000 pounds, that's 2,500 pounds worth of stuff. This 7,000 pound axle, I could put like 5,500 pounds back here before it's maxed out. I think this is probably about 3,000 pounds of stuff with all the tools, welder, air compressor, etc. And so this is going to be pretty comfortable for it, which is good because pulling this thing empty, it's really bouncy and jouncy with a 7,000 pound suspension, and the trailer weighs 1,500 pounds empty, like exactly 1,500, as exact as the truck's top scale can get it. So yeah, we have this. The other thing right here, this is why I spaced these boxes apart the way that I did. Can't ask for much more precision than that. And I have another space in here. If I have like a 5 foot length of stuff, I can strap it down to this I-beam frame. That's why I love I-beam trailers. You just put a hook under that anywhere you want. In here, I got my midget ladder. I got extension cord, plasma cutter. So this front box holds the kind of the heavy service stuff, like the mag drills in here, bandsaws in here, hammer drill, 2 different types of saws, all my safety gear. This is for kind of bulkier stuff. You know, I wanted as much weight far at the front of this as I could to counteract this being a little bit behind the axle. So this is lighter stuff, like my extension cord, small plasma cutter I take with me everywhere. I don't take the big one with me unless I know I'm going to need it. Although I guess I could now because, you know, we have room in here. Impact sockets, I think there's a breaker bar in here, and my welding leads on top right under the ladder, which I get out like pretty much all the time anyway. So like I said, much less digging. Pull out the ladder, have all my leads right there, and I don't have to take out the leads I'm not using to get at my bandsaw and my mag drill and whatever else, because, you know, they have their own box now. So got that. This toolbox included this little plastic tray, which is kind of nice. I put small air compressor type deals in there, you know, so they don't have to go anywhere else. If I have to air up a tire somewhere or something, just fire up that machine and then plug that thing in, and it's right there. It's ready to go. So yeah, I am really, really happy with the way this thing turned out. I like the way it looks. That's another thing. You know, I talked about in another video, you really, you know, when you roll up on site and you're trying to charge someone 60, 80, 90, 100 bucks an hour, whatever the case is, you want to have a good looking rig. This doesn't really have to cost you that much. I'm not saying go out and buy a $70,000 diesel pickup and then like one of those Lincoln Electrics with the stainless steel sheet metal on it and bolt that down. Just make sure, you know, I'll give you an example. I saw a truck once and it, like, no tailgate, beat the crap, you know, Bobcat, like ratchet strapped down to the bed, looked like the guy just pulled it out of a junkyard the other day, like trash all over the inside of the bed, cylinders rolling around. It really wouldn't have even cost the guy much money to clean this up a lot. Throw out the garbage, throw out the scrap metal, $10 Rust-Oleum paint job on the welding machine, you know, so it matches everything else. And, you know, 20 bucks if you're gonna buy some eBay decals as well. You know, and I wanted this stuff to be all the same color. For the most part, I got that. The exception being the air compressor. This thing, I took one look at, like, this is gonna suck to paint because there's all this space in here. I'd have to take the pump off and the motor off and the belt guard and all this other stuff, or else it was going to look absolutely terrible, so I chose to simply not paint it. And I'm okay with making this choice. I would prefer if it was the same color, but we basically only have 2 colors on this thing as opposed to 1, 2, 3, 4. And I guess the red, if that sort of counts. I look at it as an accent, just like that. It's a nice touch. You can charge more for that. I'm kidding. But overall, it's the same color. I think it looks fairly respectable. It looks fairly organized. I really like it. One thing I don't like, however, is, believe it or not, this took almost 3 friggin' days to assemble. I was planning like maybe 1.5 or something, and I feel like usually I have a decent enough ability to guesstimate how much time it's going to take to do things. Don't always get it right though. I don't think anybody always gets it right. This is one case where I didn't. Looking back, it's not that surprising because I had to unbolt all this stuff from the skid. I had to empty out all the boxes, move all the crap, unbolt everything from the old skid, cut apart the old skid, liberate the air compressor, move all this stuff around, clean it up, paint it, wait for it to dry, move it all on here, wrestle it, bolt it down with all these bolts, which want to be a pain because, you know, it's hard to hold onto the top while you're under the trailer, you know, with the impact gun. You know, do all that, organize stuff, you know, run the lines to the battery and all the little finicky stuff that you don't think about, but it still takes you time anyway. Yeah, like I said, it took almost 3 days to do all this, but, you know, it really didn't cost much. I bought the hose and I bought this 60-inch toolbox. This was the expensive part. This giant box was like $300 or $400, and the hose reel was like 160 or something, but it came with another hose, so that's kind of nice. But still, you know, all this stuff, I've gained so much space. I've gained time and efficiency in the streamlined organization where, like I said, generally speaking, there's only 1 layer of tools inside these boxes. I have the vise right there. I don't even really need the ladder to reach this stuff anymore. This is probably a full 8 to 10 inches lower than the welding skid on the flatbed was. But I have the ladder. I'll set it up, you know, anyway, because it makes it that much easier. But like, I can reach in here, just grab, you know, whatever. And it's not just because I'm friggin' 6 foot whatever tall. It really is much more easier to grab. So I have all this. Also have this dog. He's pretty cool. Lots of dogs need homes from shelters and whatnot. If you've ever thought about getting one, highly recommended. But whatever the case, yeah, trailer, pretty happy with this. I would prefer to retain the use of the trailer separately, but like I said, it's gonna be so much nicer to just have all the stuff with me and have easier access to it. And, you know, doing this is going to save me like $600-700 a year, and insuring this and registering it, and then whatever maintenance it needs on top of that. So, yeah, that's sort of my random vlog on this. I really hope you guys have enjoyed the video. Although it took longer than I thought, I really did enjoy this project, and I really think this is going to work out better for me in the future. And it's so nice to have an air compressor, like a real air compressor with me now constantly, instead of wrestling with that piddly thing out of the passenger seat every day. So yeah, really happy with this. I hope you guys have enjoyed watching it. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe for more. Have a nice day.